A common worry that people might have when they're thinking about joining the United States Army is they don't know what it's going to be like in the day-to-day lifestyle, right? What is it going to be? What time do we start? What time do we get off? How busy are we? How much time do I get for free time? All that kind of thing, right? So I kind of want to explain and break down what it's like for the day-to-day lifestyle if you're in the Army. Now, a lot of what I'll be talking about is focused on active duty because that's what I did. I'll give a little bit of intel or a little bit of kind of idea as to what it might be like for Reserves and National Guard, but I don't have that experience from National Guard or Reserves because I was on active duty. So a lot of my content is geared towards active duty. If you're not subscribed, then you need to hit that subscribe button. Hit that subscribe button, click on the bell so you get all notifications. That way you know when new videos go live, if I have a live stream, whatever the case is, become a part of that awesome notification platoon and join the Chaos Army by hitting that subscribe button. So let's talk a little bit about that day-to-day life. I can't predict every possible scenario. I'm gonna give you a lot of the common scenarios and even a few other kind of scenarios, but just be aware, use this as kind of like an idea as to what it'd be like. But there is some variables of things that can happen in there. If you're in specific units that have crazy schedules, like you're an MP, right? They have probably shift work, right? Maybe even sometimes with cooks. Specific units sometimes will have some kind of crazy kind of schedules that will differ from the rest of the Army, but a lot of your majority of the individuals in the Army have something similar to what I'm gonna be talking about. So we are talking about when you actually get to your unit, not talking about basic training, not talking about AIT, not talking about OSIT. You have completed all of your initial training and you have shown up at your actual duty assignment. What is it gonna be like when you're actually doing your job, the day-to-day lifestyle? So let's say your most common scenario, not deployed, none of that kind of thing, right? Your typical morning starts off with doing physical fitness. The time that you're gonna be doing physical fitness is pretty commonly gonna be about 6:30. There are other units that may vary a little bit based on what's going on and based on what they do that may fluctuate that, but the majority of Army units, they start physical fitness at 6:30 in the morning. Now that doesn't mean that you just show up at 6:30 and start doing physical fitness. There's an accountability formation that happens immediately at 6:30 before you actually start doing the physical fitness. So the soldiers show up usually to the company area is where they'll kind of have it at. Maybe they have a designated physical fitness location, whatever. And they have to be there prior to 6:30. That way they can kind of make sure we got everybody before we kind of give the report that's a part of that accountability. So people are showing up 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever, prior to that 6:30 formation. You're all formed up by platoon. Usually it's done at that company, troop, battery level kind of a thing where they do the accountability, all separated into the different platoons. So the squad leaders are usually making sure they got everybody for their squad prior to that 6:30 type of thing. That's why it's usually key to be early. So that way at 6:30, when the first sergeant comes out to ask to receive the report, as it's called, everybody knows where everybody's there or not there or where that person's at. So they do this whole little spiel thing of receiving the report and all that kind of stuff. But during that process, they are asking, hey, do you have everybody? Do you not have everybody? That kind of a thing, right? So the squad leaders will report up saying that, either everybody is here, if they're supposed to have 10 people and I got all 10 people, everybody's here. But if I have somebody that's gone for an appointment, that's, maybe gone somewhere else, you need to know where they're at. So you have to give that accountability. And if you don't have somebody and you don't know where they're at, then they're what's considered out of ranks. So then you'll probably say, private so-and-so, whatever the case is, they're out of ranks. And then that usually gets reported up and that person could possibly get in trouble, get a counseling, whatever the case is, depending on why they're out of ranks. Typically after that, they'll have someone go check on them, call them, try to do something to try to find out where the hell this person's at. So they give that report to the first sergeant, let them know, hey, we got everybody accounted for, whatever. Maybe we got some people out of ranks if that's the case. So they give that accountability to the first sergeant and then the first sergeant hands it off to the platoon sergeants, unless it's like one of those things where we're doing like company, troop, battery, PT type of thing. But that doesn't happen like on an everyday schedule. That's usually like designated days ahead of time. You'll usually know that you're doing like, mass PT with the whole entire, unit. But otherwise, for the most part, it gets turned over to the platoon sergeants to conduct physical training. From there, the platoon sergeants typically conduct maybe a platoon level PT, but they also could possibly do things like squad, section level PT. It just really depends on the leadership style of that platoon sergeant as far as how you're gonna do PT. So they hand it off and that first hour of the day typically is doing physical fitness, right? They usually mix it up to where maybe one day is a run day, the next day is like upper body day, then the next day is a run day, all that kind of stuff. So it's usually not always the same type of thing that they're doing. It's some kind of a set schedule to kind of give your body a little bit of a rest. A common thing a lot of units will do, like Thursday for PT, you'll show up in uniform and do sergeant's time training. So that might include like a road march or something else that's kind of like educational physical fitness type of thing too at the same time, but that does vary by the units. So physical fitness in the morning is typically an hour long, right? There are some units that I've even been in where they did an hour and a half, so that could be a common thing, but on average, 6:30 to 7:30 is physical fitness. So physical fitness in the morning is typically an hour long, right? There are some units that I've even been in where they did an hour and a half, so that could be a common thing, but on average, 6:30 to 7:30 is physical fitness. So at the end, it gets timed about 7:30, right, as the common one, unless you're doing a little bit longer physical fitness. Then they go and they do their final stretches and everything. That way we're done by 7:30, let's say on the average, and they release the soldiers and then typically have to be back at a certain place and location or whatever at 9 o'clock. So you have that time frame from 7:30 to 9 o'clock to shower, to change, to get some breakfast, whatever you got to do in that time frame. And then 9 o'clock, a lot of times, is another formation. Sometimes it's just 9 o'clock, be somewheres and do get started on work, but sometimes you have a 9 o'clock formation. That's really common, especially like Mondays, because Mondays is kind of like the first day of the week. So commonly you might be expected that you're gonna have a Monday formation, especially if you have a job that works with the motor pool, with vehicles, with whatever, because they do what is called command maintenance. They also have other terms like motor pool Mondays, motor stables. A lot of people have different terms, but Mondays, 9 o'clock, a lot of times you will have another formation in the motor pool or at a designated location. That one is, again, kind of another accountability just to make sure, hey, we got everybody, but also it's also to kind of give out like a briefing as far as what the expectation is of the week, what's going on during the week, what's gonna be happening. So then they kind of put that out to the whole unit to say, hey, this is what we have going on this week, all that kind of stuff. Platoon sergeants make sure this stuff's happening and all that kind of thing. There's a lot of kind of, possibilities, a lot of kind of reasons for that 9 o'clock formation on Monday. And then other days, you may or may not have like a 9 o'clock formation. It may just be show up at this location at 9 o'clock and let's start working. So you show up at whatever your duty assignment is for 9 o'clock, whether that's working in the motor pool, working in an office, working at another location, whatever, right? And then you kind of start doing your job for the most part. I mean, it's not always going to be a guaranteed thing. They're gonna be doing your job every day. There might be certain days that are designated for like classes, for other training, for details as they're called, to go and do other tasks that we just need people to go and do. So it's not a guarantee that every single day you're gonna be doing your job, but 9 o'clock is the pretty common time frame for you to do whatever tasks are kind of coming about. Doing your job, doing these other tasks, doing these classes, whatever. So you're commonly spending that time from 9 o'clock till about usually 11:30. I mean, there are some units that will go from 9 o'clock to 12, but I've seen a lot of units that also pretty commonly, if they're not super busy, just do 9 o'clock to 11:30. So it can be pretty common that you might get anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half lunch. Hell, even sometimes maybe even a 2-hour lunch. There's times sometimes where you're just don't have a whole lot going on and they might just kick you out to lunch at 11 o'clock. So I wouldn't expect that as an everyday thing, but that can sometimes happen. So you go off to lunch, right? You do whatever you want to do. If you want to go to the chow hall because you're single, cool. If you are married, you can still go to the chow hall, you just have to pay. If you want to go back to your room, back to your place, your apartment, whatever, you live off post, you want to go out to lunch, whatever, you're free to basically go wherever you want to go to lunch, right? You just have to usually be back at 1300, otherwise 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's the pretty common time to return, right? So we have to be back there at a specific time, get back to work, whatever it was you were doing probably before lunch, probably continuing it. Sometimes you might have something else you're doing, but whatever. You have a job to do from 1300 until you're gonna be released for the day. Now, the being released for the day definitely is kind of the hard one to predict. I mean, a common one could be 4:30 in the evening or 5 o'clock in the evening, but that's still not really a guaranteed type of thing. And you can have scenarios where it's earlier, right? That really is kind of like a tough one to say, right? I mean, if you have a thing going on where, there's not much going on, right? You're not too busy, then sure. They might be like, yeah, go ahead and send everybody home. We're not really doing anything, and we'll continue doing some stuff tomorrow, right? So maybe you get to go home at like, 2:30, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, whatever, right? And then there's other times where you are pretty busy because we're behind, last minute stuff comes up, which I always hated that, but it does happen where you didn't do crap or you barely did anything during the day, and for some stupid reason we got like an hour left in the day or whatever, and now all of a sudden they put out that this has to get done, and now we're stuck there later. So that can be a factor too. So how late they can keep you, I mean, it's really up to the mission. I mean, a lot of times they aren't going to keep you unnecessarily just to be assholes kind of a thing, but if there's things they got to get done and they have to get done that day, then yeah, you're just kind of stuck being there. There is no like definite time you're gonna get off, because if you don't get off at that time, you're getting overtime. No, there's none of that. There's no overtime in the military. If they want you to work from 6:30 in the morning to 6:30 the next morning, they could possibly do that. Obviously, they try not to do that because they don't want to hurt morale. They don't want to, make soldiers get out of the Army. They want to try to retain soldiers and try to keep them in the Army. So a lot of times if it's unnecessarily something you need to do, then they're not going to keep you longer than they need to. But let's say just in the example of your common day, right? Everything's going smoothly, no last minute things. 4:35 is pretty much going to be the common time frame that they're going to tell you, hey, take off, you're done for the day, see you tomorrow. From there, you're free to do whatever, right? You can go, if you're a single soldier, go back to the barracks, hang out, go off post and go to the mall, go to a restaurant, go check out something, whatever you want to do. Married, you're going back home to your family and do whatever you want. It's not like it is in basic training, AIT or OSIT or whatever, when you're done for the day of doing classes where you're just stuck in the barracks cleaning. No, you're pretty much free to do whatever. So it's more like a regular job on the civilian side, right? When you're done at work, then you take off. Now, I will say that it's not technically really like civilian job, because really if something was to come up, like let's say you got released at 5 o'clock and then for whatever crazy reason something happened and they need people to come back at 7, then they can easily do that. And you're kind of stuck in that situation where, yeah, you have to come back. That's not an all the time thing, right? There are moments when that happens and you get called back, but for the most part, that's not a common thing that happens. It happens, but not like an everyday type of an occurrence. So like I said, that's your free time, right? Once you get released, you're free until the next time they told you to show up. If that next time they told you to show up is the next day for 6:30 PT, then you're free to do whatever, right? There's no set bedtime or anything else like that. You can stay on party all night if you really wanted to, or you can do whatever you want and then choose when you want to go to sleep, right? Once you're at your actual unit, like I said, it's different in training, but actual unit definitely has more of that common kind of feel to like a civilian job type of thing, as far as you get that free time for yourself as long as something doesn't come up. Now, when it comes to holidays, weekends, that's up to you, right? You're off on the time frame, right? There's no reporting, there's nothing you really have to do to kind of like get accountability on a Saturday or on a Sunday if that's not a work day type of thing. So if you're off those days, you're off those days. The next work day, the next time you have to show up for 6:30 accountability formation before PT, that's probably the next time they're gonna kind of check on you to make sure that you're still alive, you haven't gone AWOL, whatever. A pretty common thing you'll get in the Army is if, let's say, Monday is a holiday, Friday is what's called a danza, a day of non-scheduled activities, and so you might get a 4-day weekend. Not always guaranteed, but that's pretty common. So pretty nice kind of a thing. Sometimes you get a longer weekend, but if it's just a regular weekend, then you're just kind of free to do whatever you want to do on Saturday and Sunday, back at it on Monday. Now, deviating from that, from different kind of ideas for things that aren't the normal type of schedule, right? There is times where you get called in early for whatever. Maybe they want to do urinalysis is pretty common, where you get called up and you're told that, hey, you got to be at the company area at 5 o'clock, and they won't tell you why, right? And sometimes that happens, and everybody usually kind of figures like, oh great, it's probably like 100% urinalysis. Maybe it happened like right after like a vacation time frame for the unit was blocked off for, and now everybody came back from that vacation like around Christmas time or something. So now all of a sudden we have to be in at 5 o'clock, and that's probably because they want to do that urinalysis, that piss test to drug test everybody early in the morning. There's also times where you have to start mission early and you might get out of physical fitness. So maybe, there's these people that have to show up to, 6:30 formation in the physical fitness uniform. And then these people have to show up in uniform because instead of them doing physical fitness, they're going to be going and taking off to do a mission immediately. They usually still want them a lot of times to show up at that first formation, get accountability, and then go do their mission. Like if they have to go prepare a range, go draw ammo, they have to do this class that starts early, whatever, right? Then they might show up at the first formation in uniform, and instead of doing physical fitness, then go take off to whatever it is that they're supposed to be going to do. I've seen it also sometimes where you'll show up in uniform at 6:30, not to do PT, but to go and start immediately working in the motor pool because maybe we're about to go to the field, so we have a lot of things to knock out. So we're just gonna start working immediately at 6:30, maybe kind of shuffle some people through to go grab some chow here at like around 7:30, 8-ish or something like that, but nothing too long. Maybe it's only like 20, 30 minutes, go grab something, come right back kind of a thing, and then continue working. That's sometimes something that happens during lunch too, right? There may be times where you won't get an hour for lunch. You won't get 30 minutes for lunch. You're gonna be stuck working through lunch. Now, if you're a single soldier, they have to provide you an opportunity to go eat, because if they don't, then you can put in what's called a missed meal kind of thing, and you can kind of get a little bit of money back because you didn't get to go to the chow hall and they didn't provide you with the opportunity. And a lot of people don't like that. So the single soldiers will commonly be like, okay, go grab a to-go plate and come right back kind of a thing. Married soldiers, tough it out. But if there isn't things that are like really like in dire need of getting done that day, then you still get a lunch break. But sometimes that can happen where you get stuck having a shorter lunch, no lunch, depending on your you know, if you're single or married, and a lot of other kind of classifications, but that can also happen as well. Same goes for the end of the day, right? There are times where you will not get off at 4:30, 5 o'clock. You might work till midnight, who knows, right? It just kind of really depends on how critical of a mission it is that has to get done, right? There has been times like I have experienced in the Army, mainly like around like the time frame when we're getting ready to go to the field, because there's just so much to get done and very little time to get it done in. And things come up last minute, whatever kind of a thing, and you get stuck working in the motor pool until like, you know, maybe it's only a little bit late. Maybe it's only until 6 o'clock. Maybe it's only until 7 o'clock. But I've also had experiences where it's until 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, midnight, whatever the thing was. And it sucks, but that can happen. I don't usually have that thing as like a all the time happening, right? There's gonna be some people telling you, I never got off at 4:35. I always did this. And I'm probably gonna call bullshit on it. I mean, yes, there are times where that happens, but it's not like the majority of your Army career is gonna be like that. It's gonna be designated times, you know, commonly around the field problems and around other kind of key, you know, type of things that are going on, but not like an every day, every week, every month kind of an occurrence. If you're in one of those jobs where you have shift work, then yeah, your kind of job is very unpredictable, where you're gonna be working some crazy hours because they need you during the other hours too. That you can't just do your job just during 6:30 to 5, because we also need people doing this job at midnight, at 2 o'clock in the morning, or whatever the case is. And that's definitely a different kind of scenario. But for other MOSs, right? Infantry, if you're not deployed, you don't really need to do anything in the evening unless you're in the field doing some kind of, you know, training, or you're going to like the ranges or something like that. But outside of that, hell, I've seen a lot of times where infantry people are spending a lot of time in the gym because maybe they're doing a little bit of training in the morning, and then in the afternoon they really don't have a whole lot to do unless they're just gonna do that same exact training all over again. They'll, you know, send people to the gym. Hey, we're gonna go do PT twice a day, or they'll just let them go home for the day. But yeah, if you have kind of, you know, specific mission going on, there's things to get done, then it could end up being a little longer in the day. I probably won't explain too in depth with like what it's like in the field or on a deployment. I actually have videos on that, and I'll even link them down in the description box down below if you want to check out like the lifestyle of in the field compared to like the lifestyle on a deployment kind of a thing. But a lot of that is your common scenario on active duty. Reserves, I can't give you a complete full-on breakdown as to what it's going to be like. I mean, I have known people in the reserves and still know people in the reserves or National Guard. And that really varies, right? You're not doing the day-to-day basics kind of a thing. You know, it's not like active duty, right? You're only showing up those 2 weekends a month, the 2 weeks a year, whatever it is you're kind of doing. And then the other times you probably have a day job that you're doing. But an example, like I've seen with reserve units, when they show up for their 2 days, you know, a month. Sometimes it ends up being more than 2 days because sometimes they include Friday and it ends up being like 4 days, you know, during that one. But that really varies based on the unit. But a lot of it I usually see is a lot of classes and a few things here and there. I don't often see it, and again, that probably just depends on the unit, where reservists are getting to do their job too much. I mean, you might have some time frame here and there where you're doing your job, and it really probably depends on what your job is. But a lot of the units that I see personally, when they come in for their training, they're doing things that may be a little bit related to their job, but not specifically exactly their job. Maybe classes that are related to their job, or other things that are related to their job, or things that are not even related to job in general. It's just soldier related kind of a thing. And they're doing those kind of classes during their weekend drill and then going back to their day job, you know, after drill's over. So it's tough to predict on that one. You may have units that are a little bit more dedicated to doing their job during that training time frame. Usually it seems like the reserve units I see, they're more focused on doing their job during that 2 weeks that they do during the year, and not specifically really that much during that weekend drill that they do. So to give you a general idea as to what the day-to-day life might be like on active duty especially, that's what the goal was for this type of video. It doesn't cover every single possible scenario, but a lot of possibilities. But you can definitely have things outside of what I talked about, and that's not to say that I didn't cover them, I can't predict every single possible scenario. But to continue learning about the United States Army, make sure you're subscribed. I actually have now a Christopher Chaos Challenge coin, and I'm gonna be talking about pretty soon about how you can possibly earn one of these. I don't wanna just do a giveaway for these, but possible ways for you to earn a challenge coin. I'll even link down in the description box down below who makes my awesome challenge coins, but keep an eye out for that. That's why it's key to make sure you're subscribed to this channel. If you want to learn more about the United States Army, I got some videos that probably popped up on the screen that you can continue viewing experience, all that kind of fun stuff. Check out links down in the description box. Like the video. Thanks for hanging out. I'm Christopher Chaos. I'll see you next time. See ya.